Hello, and welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast. It's your boy Day.
And I'm David, and together we are Call Me Limbo. Today we are creating conversations, and we have such a great guest. She came back. She agreed to come back. She's a friend of Phoebe Award winner. She was the guest of our most downloaded episode in the last year. So you all really liked when we talked to her. She is the winner of the historic Denver County Assembly vote by like 2-1 a few months ago. She's taking on Money in Politics and a 30-year incumbent. Her day one priority is taking on international unlimited hot chocolate refill diplomacy. She's your favorite legislator's favorite future legislator, and I'm going to call it right now. She's the next congresswoman from Denver's Congressional District 1. Melat Kiros is back. Thank you, Melat.
What an intro. Oh my gosh. Y'all are the best. Y'all are the best. I'm so excited to be back. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. It's an honor for you. Or it's an honor for me to have you back too, and it's an honor for us. So I warned you in advance. We had a little silly question before we kind of got into the politics stuff, but are you watching Love Island?
Oh, honey. You know what? I've never been so delayed in watching it before. Like, I used to have the ritual of every night I would catch up on the next episode. I'm a little bit behind right now. But I am watching, and it is insane. But actually, my follow-up question is, which one?
Season 8. Like, yeah.
No, UK or US?
Oh, good point, because they're both on right now. So I told Day this like last week that I've only ever watched 2 seasons. The first season of UK and now this season of US. So I've only been watching the US this season.
Those are wildly different shows, let alone the seasons of characters and arcs. Oh man. Yes. No, I love Love Island. It is, oh my gosh, it's so much fun. In fact, I'm really hoping to go out to one of the watch parties here in Denver soon too.
Yeah. Oh my God. I didn't know that they had Love Island watch parties here. That makes me really happy. I'm rooting for Casey and Anaya. That's my couple right now. So
I'm not gonna hold you. I don't remember the names right now. Okay. Oh my God. I tune in and I'm like, I'm starting from blank and we're just here to enjoy the mess. Oh my God. But it has been entertaining. It's been very entertaining and messy. The producers are really on one this season, I think.
Yes, I agree. So, okay. Well, thank you for entertaining that.
If I may, I feel like honestly, politics could benefit from some reality TV shows like this because I feel like if they made the primary process, especially on like presidential levels, turned it into something like this, it could be fun because at the end of the day, there's no reason for us to have these year-long processes. You make it like 2 to 3 months, film it, put it out, let the people see it in real time. I think it'd be great because that's what they've become. And we waste so much money on elections that it's like give everybody equal time, airtime, run it, and let's see what happens. But that's my personal thing.
I completely agree with you. And I think, I mean, frankly, I think Love Island is political. I think reality TV is very political. You know, in fact, there's a book that's on my TBR right now that like looks at reality TV shows, but from like the context of like an apocalypse and like really exacerbating some of the worst aspects of reality TV. And you know what? There's a YouTube video. I'm gonna send it to y'all that literally walked through like even the way they design their sets and like the artwork that they use and the way they organize it is all designed to maximize stress and confusion and just to bring out as much drama as possible, which, you know, it's great TV. I'm guilty of enjoying it myself too. But really is, I think, calling into question some things that I think we ought to talk about the rights of the people that go onto these shows. And, you know, what kind of conditions they're deserving of as well too. But that's a conversation for another day. I could definitely nerd out on that for sure.
In fairness, I was on one, so I completely agree with you. Mine was
No
not as
kidding?
extreme. I think, yeah. So I think it depends on the type you're on, but I 100% agree. So I did a show called The X Factor USA, and like
A
they
little show
definitely
called
focused.
The X Factor.
I
You
was
may
about
have
to say,
heard
hold
it.
up. What are you
He was
talking
on
about?
the
The X
first
Factor?
season and he
What?
made it into like the top 24. Like,
But
Shut
no, but I want
yes.
up.
to say, like, the way it's set up, it definitely can create stress. But I could only imagine when the focus is talent, like singing or something like that, that's one
Yeah.
thing. But to do something like
Yeah. It's a little
dating,
more
a
wholesome.
relationship, yeah, it's more wholesome. So
Yeah.
I could only imagine if I was stressed, what it's like being under the guise of something like a Love Island or Temptation Island, Love is
Mm.
Blind, Circle. David is our resident reality person, so I'm learning a lot. And I think what you said does relate to politics because there, of course, is a new book by Adam Johnson called How to Sell a Genocide, The Media's Complicity in the
Mm.
Destruction of Gaza. And I think what you're saying is really true, whether it be reality television. I think one reason why we see there's so much impact or why maybe, the Palestinian people were able to break through is because for the first time, it's not being televised, but it is being put on our social media. And we see people like the Ellisons or others coming in to buy these media corporations to effectively be able to guard against what we're able to see as our information. So if I could ask you, as a member of Congress, are there things that you've thought about when it comes to these mergers? Or, we see with Barry Weiss and CNN and all these different organizations that we see them, Jeff Bezos and the Post, what ways or what safeguards could be put in place to protect our First Amendment and to protect the freedom of the press when it comes to a lot of these organizations?
It's something I've been thinking about a lot, and I'm really glad that you asked because, um, I'm forgetting the name of the journalist who recently left 60 Minutes because of
Scott,
Barry
Miller,
Weiss.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and
Kelly.
I think in his most recent interview, he really put it really well, which is that our democracy does not survive without
mhm,
journalism, without independent journalism, and I think there are some common sense things that we need to do on the federal level, policy wise, to be able to break up some of these monopolies and bring back some independence into our media. But I don't think that's the first step. I think the first step is on viewers and for
yeah,
us to make a choice in saying that, we're not going to consume this kind of media anymore and instead seek out the new media where there are a lot more independent, podcasts or newsrooms and websites that are doing, I would say, like true journalism again. And I think folks have, you know, I think we've kind of lost the true definition of what journalism is and what it should be, which is that, um, it's meant to be revealing the truth, right? It's not about talking about both sides and presenting all of the facts or whatever the case is. It's like, what's the real thing happening right now? Who actually has the power and what kind of choices are they making? And are those impacts good or bad for everybody else who doesn't have that kind of power? And so, I think of places like Democracy Now, who's been doing that work for 30 years now and
oh
has been
yeah.
doing it at, I would say, the highest caliber of any new media newsroom in the country. And so, uplifting those folks and especially as candidates and as politicians, making sure that we're helping them deliver the truth to voters and to the people of this country is really important as well. Um, and then once we can finally get enough people in Congress that can commit to, giving the FEC and, just the resources that they need to actually impose and enforce these antitrust laws, break up these monopolies, and take away the profit motive from a lot of these newsrooms and media companies. Because at the end of the day, that's what they are now, right? They're entertainment companies. These are not news
Mhm.
stations. CNN, least of all, Fox News, MSNBC, all of them are now really, I think, impacted and influenced by this profit motive that has been completely detrimental to really the critical work of journalism and really being able to protect our democracy.
I like that
Yeah.
you said that, and I would even push back a little bit. Well, one, I want to give credit Scott Pelley. from 60 Minutes, is that at this point, with the people who are owning it, like the spinoff of MS Now, or buying a TikTok, buying a Washington Post, a lot of these organizations are run by people who are multi-billionaires. So whether they're profitable or not is almost irrelevant, because to the people at the top, it's pennies, but the amount of power that it accumulates for them in order of pushing their narrative, pushing an agenda that they feel is more favorable to corporations, et cetera, it really seems to be the goal. And that is what scares me even more, because now I'm like, wow, usually we can just say it's the profit, but now it's like, oh, it doesn't matter how much money they're making.
Sometimes it's not even the profit motive. Like you're right. Sometimes it's just propaganda.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Well, and speaking of being truthful, we said this the last time that you were here, but I have to be honest, I was like, I am very biased in this conversation. I'm a donor. I have a yard sign in front of my house with your name on it. I
Oh
will
my
be voting for
gosh.
you. My ballot arrived yesterday, so I just need to open it. But yes, I think it is important to make sure that I am also being completely transparent with my own biases. But a lot has changed since the last time that we talked. We talked with you back in December, and
Yeah.
since then you won the county assembly by like 60 some percent. And the incumbent, Diana DeGette, had like barely made like
She was
barely
6
even.
votes away.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And so it's like the amount of enthusiasm that is like that I feel for you amongst like my friends and my community, even my cousin who I was talking to yesterday, who voted, I think you'll get a kick out of this, who voted, she said, I said, I'm talking to Melat tomorrow. And she said, tell her this. She said, your cousin, my cousin, who voted for Michael Bloomberg for president a few years ago in the primary, is supporting you because you're not taking APAC money or PAC
Oh
money.
my gosh.
And so like like even people who are like relatively who I would consider to be like normie Democrats
Mm.
are like very excited about you and your candidacy. So like you've also racked up quite a few endorsements since the last time that we chatted, and it was like you've been traveling and you've been on all of these like huge platforms, and it's been so exciting to see. And I'm just curious, like, if you can tell us a little bit more about like what has kind of transpired over the last few months and how you're feeling going into the last couple of weeks of the election
Yeah,
or the primary.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's been a whirlwind. It has been I would agree that I think everything changed after the assembly vote. I think not only was it really incredible to see the enthusiasm that we were able to get in securing 67% of the vote, and just having that much support, but I think it also rattled a lot of folks to see that the congresswoman did virtually nothing to prepare for the assembly, and didn't even bother to get the backup of collecting signatures as well to make sure she would still be on the ballot. And so we got a lot of national attention actually in between the county vote and the final CD1 vote, because if we were able to flip a few more folks, we only had a 10 vote divide. If we were
Wow.
able to flip 10 people, she would have been off the ballot entirely and she wouldn't have had enough time to collect signatures. We were able to flip 4. And so, those conversations I think were really, really meaningful for folks to see she's not even trying. She
Mhm.
feels so entitled to this seat. She just expects that she's going to coast through. Even people in DC were really frustrated with her and for her lack of attention and caring about how to get onto the ballot and everything. And so I think those two things combined brought a lot more attention onto the race. And since then, it has just been growing by the day. And in that time, I would say we now have over 7,100 individual donors supporting our campaign
Wow.
with an average donation of like $50. We have over 550 canvassers, almost 1,000 volunteers. We're planning on hitting 100,000 doors before the end of the campaign, which would probably be the biggest field operation happening in the entire state right now. And so it has just been a whirlwind. And I think it's really important to credit where that enthusiasm is coming from. And I think, your cousin makes it crystal clear, right? It's about the money. I think our campaign has done a really good job of drawing the connection between the ineptitude and the ineffectiveness of the Democratic Party and their relationship with these corporate PACs and these special interests, right? These are not people or companies that are giving this money because they are generous. They are getting something in return. Even if the thing that they're getting in return is that you're not doing anything, which is evidenced by DeGette being the least effective Democrat in the Colorado delegation. And so I think folks are starting to catch on and see that nothing's going to change until we start voting these people out. Even if we all agree that we need to reverse Citizens United, you still need a majority to get that done. And that responsibility falls on the voters, and giving people that agency back, that sense of control over a system and an economy that feels like it has been so sky high and away from, any kind of impact that we might have as people, and showing, no, that's not true. In fact, the people who know that best are the ones who are in power, which is why they're working so hard to make people believe that they don't have that kind of impact. And so, lifting the veil on all of that and showing people that every single one of us has a role to play in this, I think has been really the driving force behind all of the supports that we've been getting, and growing from truly the grassroots up until where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, and you also mentioned DeGette, and I was like, she didn't. There was what, a $350,000 super PAC contribution recently to her
Yeah.
campaign. Is that right?
Yep.
And now, and there's a lot of PAC money coming into this race in support of the incumbent. And I think it's because she's afraid, because obviously you have support from so many people here in Denver. And I'm just curious, like, she's using it to create attack ads against you. And I'm like, first of all, I don't know what you could attack, but because I'm like, the policies that you support are very popular, like not funding a genocide, like publicly financed elections, Medicare for all, like all of these getting money out of politics, like these policies that you stand for, whether or not you're a Democrat or Republican, people like support these policies. So I was like, I don't know if you even want to talk about it, but like, what is she saying? How is she saying? How does it make you feel? Like, how are you
Yeah.
responding? Like, yeah.
Oh, I absolutely want to talk about it. Because you know
Hey,
what?
let's do it.
Do you know what? I think I really believe, and I think a lot of folks maybe have this kind of same sense that, all of this money and all of these resources and this time and this expertise that they have on that side, um, to keep out candidates like myself, it feels so daunting. And I think it's what prevents so many people from stepping up to run. Putting yourself in the line of fire in this way is not, it's not an easy thing to do. It can feel really scary. But I do think that when you're running on a platform as common sense and as aligned with the voters as we have, you find that the attacks that they come out with are, for lack of a better word, goofy. Like
Yeah.
it is so, the things that they're claiming, that I'm not from here, which very much just feels anti-immigrant since I immigrated
Yes.
here when I was a baby. These claims from these other organizations that are supporting us that supposedly I have never in my life said we should abolish the Senate or exit NATO or any of these things. All demonstrable lies. And then to also elevate, just this morning, there are super PACs that are coming in. The
Yep.
anonymous super PAC you just mentioned with the 350K, the landlords and the real estate lobby just dropped in for mailers for her this morning. But she's also running attack ads herself with her name next to it, to a headline from a right-wing blog that tried to accuse me of rationalizing October 7th because of the letter that I wrote when I got fired. Literally, the headline reads, disqualifying Melat Kiros rationalizes the murder of Jews. And it is so outrageous and so ridiculous that honestly I'm unimpressed. I'm so deeply unimpressed. Y'all have this much money, you have this much power, this much resources on your side, and this is the best that you've got. And that's because, the dam is breaking, right? Like, we are on the right side of this. We are calling for the kind of policies that the people actually support. And when you have that much conviction behind the platform you're running on, it is incredibly difficult to attack it in any meaningful way, as evidenced by these goofy ads that we are seeing getting posted on streaming and on social media. And so I think it is very clear that she's afraid. We are seeing just a remarkable amount of grassroots support right now for the race and for our campaign, and she's getting desperate. She's getting incredibly desperate, and I think it shows that we're on the right track. I really do.
One of my favorite things people would say growing up is, I've been talked about by better. And that's what it
Ooh.
sounded like based on what you were saying. I would like to
I
kind of,
like that.
oh, thank you. Going back with that, I would like to go a little deeper. Do you think that her attacking you is having somewhat of a Streisand effect? We've seen how they've attacked Graham Plattner. We saw, Abdul El Said or different other candidates around the country where actually attacking them kind of boosted their profile. Have you found that with your own campaign?
Absolutely, right? Like, because for a very long time, she didn't even acknowledge our existence. And, that was the strategic thing to do on her part, not give us any airtime. And that was fun because we were never trying to build a campaign the mainstream, traditional way. We were always doing things differently and building that support in coffee shops, in bookstores, in bars all across the city, and having direct conversations with voters, face to face, meeting people where they were at, and then letting their enthusiasm for the campaign, once we got to talk to them, spread within their own circles. That's how we've been able to build out this campaign so far. And now we've reached a threshold where the support and the momentum behind our campaign is undeniable, and she has to say or do something to try and protect her incumbency. The industries and the companies that are benefiting from her staying in that seat are now investing to try and protect their advantage there as well too. And so, it is absolutely, I think, backfiring. um and I think what's really interesting has been the line of attacks as well, right? Like, it is just so outrageous and so ridiculous, but I think it is also evidencing how out of touch they are with actual voters, right? Like, the fact that they think that this line of attack is going to be effective just shows how disconnected her and her team have been from the voters in this district, dramatically.
Yeah, when you can't attack the politics, you try to attack the people. So clearly you're winning. And I'm excited to see them squirm. Let her keep talking because I like what you said. You worked on building a genuine base of support so that now when she's making these ads, it's too late. People know who you are. They know they have
Hmm.
people defending you and defending what you actually represent. When someone like her, it's really just incumbency. It doesn't sound like she has a solid base of support. She's just a familiar name. So I'm excited.
Me too. Me too. It's been, I mean, don't get me wrong. It is a wild experience to scroll and then see headlines like that and attack ads like that. But I do think it shows that we're on the right track here, and that they're scared and that this is a race that we really can win.
I agree. You talked about this the last time you were with us, and I still believe this to be true, that the Democrats will likely take over the House in this upcoming election. And because Denver is so blue, that like pretty much whoever wins the Democratic primary here will become the next representative for Denver, which is why it is so important to make sure you get your ballot in for Melat before 7 p.m., I believe, Mountain Time on June 30th. So, yes, like the Democrats will likely take over the House, but Donald Trump's still going to be the president. And so, like, I don't want, like, you to get into office and people to say, well, Melat didn't accomplish much in her first 2 years because Donald Trump was president. So I'm curious, like, what can you still do as like a Democratic majority in the House, even with like a Republican president like Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I
how would
think
you
there's
approach
two
that?
things. Yeah, I think there's two things. And I think for the most part, I would say the Democratic Party I think is generally aligned on this, which is that when we take back the House, it is going to have to be our number one priority to haul in every single member of the Trump administration for hearings, for investigations, for two reasons, right? First, because we have to hold them accountable, right? The only reason we have a second Trump administration is because we didn't hold them accountable for trying to stage a coup on our government the last time. And so we have to hold these people accountable for any crimes or any ridiculous behavior that has taken place in the White House. The second reason is that we have to do everything we can to hold back their agenda. The more document requests we're submitting, the more time we're demanding from them to sit in these hearings, is less time they have to enact their agenda to destroy our economy and our democracy and everything. And so I think that is definitely a huge part of what we need to do when we take back the House. I think Democrats, for the most part, are aligned on what this is going to have to look like. I think our job as leftists and progressives in the wing of the party is going to have to be, what kind of investigations are we running, and how accountable are we holding these administrative officials? But I think the second thing, and I think what will even be more important, is the work that is going to need to continue to be done to build more of our caucus of actual progressives, right? There's the Progressive Caucus, and I can't even tell you how many of them take corporate PAC money, so it's not very progressive to me. But like the number of people that we need to get elected from other safe blue districts that are also committed to fighting for this platform. And so I see folks that are doing that work right now. Obviously, people like Summer Lee, AOC, they've been doing a lot of work to uplift candidates across the country to make sure that they're building up our base as well, and the support that we're going to need, because it's a numbers game. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. And we need to make sure that by the time we have this Democratic trifecta in 2028, because I think we'll take back the House and the Senate and the White House by 28, that we have enough power to force legislation on things like Medicare for all, on canceling medical debt, on breaking up big medicine. Because I really believe that those are the only things that are going to help us MAGA-proof our future for 2032, when whoever inevitably fills the shoes of Donald Trump tries to run again and tries to lay blame on all of our vulnerable communities for a broken and rigged system. We have to actually deliver on something. And the only way we can do that is to make sure that we don't have is that we have enough Democrats that we've helped get elected that are also not in bed with these special interests and are committed to passing the kind of legislation that really delivers relief for working people.
Yeah. And I know last time you said that you would be willing to be the one to bring the Medicare for all vote to the floor to get everybody on record. So I'm still holding you to it. I believe that you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I think those are one of the tactics that we need to be using, right? I don't think it's going to pass in this next term. I think we have to work towards getting it done in 28. But in 26 or in 27, when we have this new term, I want to put names to the votes. I want to identify who are we going to have to work on trying to flip or just voting out entirely, because there's too much at risk here. There's too much at stake. And we need to have an actual strategy about how we're going to build power in Congress.
Yes, I agree. And I was like, I was like, this is kind of more of a pressing issue for me now, because I was like, I just saw an article this yesterday on like June 10th when we're recording this, the 11th, but like I saw an article just the other day that said that Cigna was leaving the individual marketplace for Obamacare in Colorado and maybe altogether. And so I was like, that's where I get my health insurance through. And so I was like, it's going to be leaving. I believe they said 6 insurers still in Colorado through the individual marketplace. And so I was like, it would be so nice to not have to worry about this. It would be so nice to
Hmm.
not have to worry about finding another insurance company that my doctor or my therapist takes and hope for the best. And like with the copays and the deductibles and all of that stuff. I was like, that's why to me, I was like, it not only is like it impacting me individually, but it impacts hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people across this country who are like either underinsured, either get their insurance through the marketplace, or like just don't have insurance altogether. So I'm really happy to hear that you're continuing to fight for Medicare for all and that you're willing to get people even in your own party on record of where they stand with it.
Yeah. And if I
Absolutely.
may add to that, because you, of course, will be one of 435 members. And I think something you brought up is the importance of creating solidarity and creating a block of sorts as a progressive movement. What does that, I think personally that that was one of the failures in 2018 with the squad. I think maybe people with good intentions believe that, hey, we just got to get in there and our party will agree with us because that's where the people are, as Ariel once said in The Little Mermaid. But unfortunately, that's not the case. We saw that that the fight internally in the Democratic Party is just as hard as they fight harder against, you know, progressives than they do Republicans at times. So, what does that bridge building look like for you? And what would you hope to be able to achieve in terms of creating some sense of coordination amongst your peers?
Yeah, absolutely. The bridge building piece has been so top of mind for me because, again, learning from some of the experiences that other folks have had getting into power and being, um, learning very quickly about how things work and maybe how things don't work. And I think one of the pieces of this is that, it cannot fall onto just the people that are in the house, right? The pressure campaigns that we need to be waging on Congress from every corner of this country is going to be critical for us building the kind of power that we're going to need. And so that's why I've made it really a big component of this campaign to say that, this isn't about me, right? This is about us. And this is about us collectively working together to hold power accountable. And I'm asking for your vote and I'm asking for your faith, to trust that I'm going to commit to fight for these policies. But your responsibility is to hold me accountable when I get there and to make sure that I'm actually doing those things. And the only way you can do that is by staying engaged and staying informed. And so drawing this connection for voters, it's not a coincidence that we have such low voter turnout, right? It's not a coincidence that the people who do turn out to vote are often wealthier and better off and better educated and, white. Like these are not coincidences, right? The people who have the most to lose from the decisions that are made in power are often the ones that have too much to deal with on a daily basis to be able to engage, in our democracy. And so, um, the case that I've been making for a lot of voters is that keep it as simple as following the money. It's that simple. Like it does not even matter what party, it doesn't matter what level of office. The vast majority of Americans across party lines actually agree on a lot of issues, right? A majority of Americans support Medicare for all. 72% of Americans support, universal child care. Like these are not partisan issues. What we're missing is the, accountability from our elected representatives. And that's on us, right? We're the ones that are voting them into power. And to make it as simple for folks to stay engaged and to wield that power with their vote at the ballot box, is to keep it as simple as just don't vote for corporate shills, regardless of what level, regardless of what party. Make sure that the person that you're sending into office, is someone who can only stay in office with your support, right? And so that's also why I think it's so important, as a candidate. to not take corporate PAC money from the get-go, right? There is this idea that, you can't win without the money of, these industries and whatever. And I'm like, that's exactly the narrative that we have to prove false. Because if we can get elected in this campaign with just grassroots support and small dollar donors, that means that when I get into power, those are the people I got to hold myself accountable to. Those are the folks that if I do wrong by them, they're not going to support my campaign. And that's how I don't get reelected. That's the way it should work. That's how it ought to be. And so I do think that, I always say that no one believes that they're the villain. Everybody thinks that they're doing the right thing. And that they're doing their very best. I think that can be said for a lot of Democrats, if I'm being honest. I think that could even be said for the Congresswoman. And that's why it's so important to understand systems and to understand how much they influence us in our decisions, whether or not you realize it. And to make it clear that the thing that we are challenging is not any one individual, but rather the system that has allowed these conditions to persist for as long as they have. And by making it about the system, it shows that the thing that actually unites us is just us being fellow Americans. It's that simple. If we all agree that we want a democracy that works for us, then we're going to all have to work together to make sure that we're sending people who are only accountable to us, because that's how it ought to be.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so it's Pride Month, and I want to ask you some questions about the LGBTQ plus community. And so I'm going to read from your website, kirosforco.com. We will link to it in the show notes. Under your section on LGBTQIA plus rights, everyone deserves the freedom to love who they love and live as their authentic selves. The fight for LGBTQIA plus rights is far from over, especially as state legislatures across the country continue to target trans youth and roll back protections. These attacks aren't about protecting children or preserving fairness. They're about control, fear, and distraction from the failures of politicians in addressing working class people's needs. We need to pass the Equality Act to protect LGBTQIA plus individuals from discrimination in schools, workplaces, and public life. Equality under the law is not negotiable, and dignity is not up for debate. So, can you talk a little bit about the Equality Act, what that is, and maybe what other policies can be passed to protect people in the LGBTQIA plus community?
Yeah. So the Equality Act basically just guarantees certain protections in the workplace when it comes to finding housing, all of the things that are part and parcel of just being a working person, and that have been opened up to discrimination, particularly as we see the right wing weaponizing hatred against the LGBTQIA plus community and trying to scapegoat particularly trans people and trans kids, and trying to make them this symbol of a culture war that exists only in the minds of a lot of these right wing, um I can't think of a kind enough word. And
Punks.
so
I'm gonna call them punks. Sorry.
yes, a cult. Yes, 100%. And I think, in the same way that immigrants have also been scapegoated. I think it's so important for us to remember, this is a community that is always going to be on the front line of attacks when it comes to fascism, when it comes to authoritarianism, and that the work that we've been doing in advancing rights for the gay community is not even close to done. And it's because we have failed on committing and fulfilling on those rights, that they have been made vulnerable to the right and to the MAGA cult. And so calling out first, why we're even here in the first place, which is our failure to have advanced those rights when we had the opportunity to, explaining why this is a community that's getting scapegoated by this administration, and talking about policies like the Equality Act that would be really meaningful, in protecting some of those things. I'll also add, we're actually updating the website right now. I wrote all of our policy page a year ago now, but we're updating it this week. And some of the things that we're adding in, there's also a trans Bill of Rights. I think we have to be so forceful and clear and aggressive in our protection and our advocacy for the trans community, especially for trans kids. You know, in Colorado, we are seeing a couple of ballot measures that are going to be coming up that are just horrific, and are really going to be, if they pass, absolutely destructive, for young trans kids. And it is, I think, incumbent upon us to be proactive in this fight. I think we've been on the defensive, and I think there are Democrats that have even considered, um, abandoning our solidarity and our advocacy for the gay community, particularly for trans people and trans kids. And for that, I would say, then you're not a Democrat. You're not. And to be fair, I got a lot of criticisms for Democrats, period. But at the end of the day, this is a party that claims to fight for the equality and the advancement for every single person, regardless of their race and their sex and their gender and all of these things. And so, if that's really what we're standing for, then this is our opportunity to show up and to actually protect this community, and to do it, loudly and proudly and boldly, is the bare minimum, I think, that's required in this moment.
I love that. And I think it was Laverne Cox I heard say, when we allow the Republicans to frame everything and blame, put all the scapegoat, the trans community, we're allowing them to focus on the wrong 1%. And kind of going with that, I'm not sure if you followed a lot of the drama around Graham Plattner, for example, in his race, where it comes to, there were some past statements or alleged behaviors, et cetera, that certain people have tried to weaponize as a way to discredit him. But I think the broader conversation that is important to have is how people, we live in the digital age. We come up in that age where there's tons of stuff we said, we did, we laughed at, that we now see is different. So I'm curious what your thoughts on what does it look like to have restorative justice or transformational justice. I mean, even on something like transgender rights, just 15, 16 years ago, we might have been using terminology that's outdated or maybe didn't understand. And so maybe by using your own journey, if you had your own journey to understanding that civil rights issue, or just in general, how do you look at it when it comes to what does someone need to show that they have grown on an issue to earn the trust of voters?
Yeah, I think I've been thinking a lot about this, because I really think there's something changing in the political landscape that relates to this idea of respectability politics, and this kind of, caricature we have of the honorable politician. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have, I think wrongly, based a lot of our politics on the ability to empathize rather than the ability to have compassion.
Mm.
And the problem with empathy is that it's a muscle, and if it is not exercised, it will atrophy. I think there is this idea that folks have that, like, of course, things like racism and bigotry, those are all taught. And I think a lot of folks who have grown up in environments where they were taught the right thing from jump, um, whether because they had good teachers or because they live in bodies that require them to understand these things regardless. All of these dynamics are things that are at a very base out of our control. And there are countless people that are in environments, that are not teaching the right things, that are highlighting the wrong lessons and then the wrong ways to think about our neighbors and our communities and our country. And if we are serious about restorative justice, if we're serious about this idea of redemption, which I believe everybody can be redeemed. We have to give people the grace to be able to do so. That being said, um, you know, that grace is obviously going to be, handed out unevenly, right? There's a reason why Graham Plattner, is getting so much grace. And, um, I think I think folks see that grace and see that it's not being given out fairly or equitably, with frustration, which is valid. But I think it's important to remember that the grace that Graham Plattner is being given is supposed to be the goal, right? It is wrong that other candidates, particularly Black candidates, Black female candidates, are rarely ever given that kind of attention and that kind of grace if in any missteps that they might have. But the goal is to deliver them the same amounts of grace, right? It's not to hold Graham Plattner or to say that, his ascendance is wrong because of the kind of grace that he's been given. And I think we also have to be honest about, again, when we're talking about empathy, the other trouble with it is that it's situational. It's much easier for you to extend empathy to somebody who looks like you, who shares your experiences. And we need to have messengers like Graham Plattner. We do, because he is going to be able to deliver a message to men and people who look like him and come from his background in a way that, it's going to ring a little hollow to them if I'm the one that's delivering that message. And so when we're talking about, what does it mean to be in class solidarity, to have class consciousness, I think folks forget that 99% of the entire country is the working class, right? Unless if you are a person who owns the means of production, you are not a capitalist. You are a part of the working class. And we have to find ways to have that solidarity with one another. It's going to be messy and it's going to be difficult sometimes. And we're going to have some really tough conversations. But I do think that if we're not extending people the opportunity to grow and to change, especially at levels of power like where Graham Plattner is running, I think it's a lot of folks are saying, okay, maybe he could have changed, but that doesn't mean that we have to, elect him senator. And I'm like, I actually think it does. I do. I think we have to show, particularly young white men who have said some of the outlandish things he has said when he was younger, who have experimented with tattoos in the way that he has, for them to know that those mistakes are not the end all be all, and that there is redemption and opportunity after the fact. And so it's complex and it's tough. But because of the nature of things, Graham Plattner is going to be fine. He's going to win. He's going to keep raising millions and millions of dollars, and that's great. I think our job now is to focus on making sure that grace is getting extended to everybody, and that we're really doing the work of building that solidarity across races, across classes, across all of these different, factors that serve only to atomize us and prevent us from being able to unify and fight back right now.
Yeah, I love the way that you frame that because it addressed two issues with the party. One, extending that grace, like you said, but two, acknowledging that there is a huge, huge opportunity when it comes to white males and especially having progressive, not corporate shills, but progressive white male representation, and not just representation, but genuine seeking of power and being an everyday person. And I think both things can be true. And I'm grateful for hearing the nuance in your conversation and your answer there.
I appreciate you.
So I think we have time for one more question, Melat. I'm going to let you choose your own adventure from these
Ooh.
topics. So I'll let you choose what you want to talk about. Term limits, gay icons, the Colorado primary, like right now, other statewide races, taxes, or America's 250th birthday.
Oh man! Ugh, first of all, you give me too many good ones.
I know. Should we do
Oh.
a rapid fire then? Maybe pick a
Um,
couple and we can do rapid fire.
Okay. I really want to talk about the 250th anniversary. I think that piece. I'm actually writing something on it right now. So I have a lot of thoughts on that front. And would be also super happy to shout out some other statewide candidates that I am so supportive of and excited to see hopefully get across the finish line.
Please,
Um,
shout them out.
Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, we could just start there.
Yeah.
Julie Gonzalez running for the United States Senate, challenging Hickenlooper. David Seligman running for Attorney General. And Amanda Gonzalez running for Secretary of State. And I the governor's race is a tougher one. I feel like it would be nice to maybe have some more options. But I've seen Phil Weiser up close and heard him talk about issues that, we don't really necessarily agree on. um, and can say without a doubt that he's coming from a place of sincerity, and real pursuit of, providing everyone dignity. And we might disagree on how to get that done, but I do think, we would be in better hands with Phil Weiser than with the billionaire-backed Bennett, who, by the way, the fact alone that he has publicly acknowledged that he has every intention of appointing his own successor, is disqualifying enough to me. I don't even need to hear any of your other positions. It is completely corrupt that we're even. I don't know how that's not bigger news, that this idea that, he's going to appoint his successor and that's just fine. And Hickenlooper is almost certainly going to retire within a year or two of this next administration. And that person's going to get appointed by Bennett. Like it's all such it is the grossest parts of the political establishment at play here. And I really, really wish it was bigger news. I think those are all the statewide races
Yeah.
that I could weigh in on.
Yeah. Those are the
And
same
then
people
really,
I'm supporting. So good people. Yeah, good job.
we love it. It's a great
Agreed.
slate. It's a great slate. Um, and then for the 250th anniversary, one of the things that I've really been trying to think more about and try and articulate in this campaign as well is that, I think a lot of folks have checked out politically, and democratically because they don't believe in the system. They don't believe in the government. And to that I say, you were never supposed to. You were never supposed to. You were never supposed to trust the government. You were never supposed to trust the system. In fact, our government was designed, our founders, for all of their faults, were also extremely intentional in how they organized this government. And they did so based on the trust that you have, not in your government, but in your fellow Americans, right? We, the people, is the beginning of the preamble for a reason. It is our commitment to one another that we are going to organize a government that protects our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if it does not, if it fails to do so, we reserve the right to start all over again and to tear this one down and do it again. And I think we're embarking on a period in our nation's history that is going to have great change. Whether we're talking about AI, whether we're talking about climate change, whether we're talking about, this reckoning with the corruption in our government and globally, frankly, I think there is going to be a change that we have to be prepared for and that we have to be participating in. And the only way that happens is if people are exercising their right to vote. Not because they trust the government, but because they are doing the work of meeting their neighbors and, meeting their fellow statesmen and the people in their city and having conversations and committing to the ideas that they care about and finding the candidates that are actually doing that, right? And I think we have no greater opportunity to do that than during the primaries. Obviously during the general, it's a much starker choice. But in the primaries, this is our opportunity to say this is exactly what we're expecting without there being this question of harm reduction, right? We have a real chance at change. And it's not just, an opportunity, but it's our duty. It's our obligation, as evidenced by the preamble of our Constitution. So, that's been kind of kicking around in my mind for a while now. And I hope it's something that resonates with voters as we're hitting this anniversary.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to read it. And I'm so grateful for you for coming on and doing this again with us. Thank you. And I'm just so grateful that we've had a chance to get to know each other a little bit over the last year or so. And I was popping into Whittier Cafe, which I know that you're not a barista anymore because you're focused on the campaign, but I'm just so appreciative of the friendship that I would say has started to blossom between us. And you have an open invitation to come back here anytime. And when you win the primary and when you become congresswoman for CD1, you are welcome back here anytime. Where can people go support you, follow you, donate to you? I'm assuming you probably
Yeah.
still need some money in the last the last few days of the race.
Yes. Yes. We need to stay on TV. We're outspending her right now, and we got to keep that up because she's got 30 years of name ID. So yeah, if you go to kirosforco.com, that is where you can read up more about our platform, where you can donate, where you can sign up to volunteer for a Canvas or a phone bank or a text bank, where all of our events are listed as well. We have some really excited stuff coming up soon that I would love to see some folks joining us for. But yeah, and then all of our socials are at Melat Kiros Co, where you can learn a bunch there as well too. But I can't thank y'all enough for having me. It was so much fun to come back, and yeah, I'm just really grateful for your friendship and for your support as well. It's been so wonderful getting to know you and to get to be on the show with y'all. You guys are always so much fun.
Yeah, thanks. And it's always fun to like
Thank
bump
you.
into you two in community too. We ran into each other at the Unseen exhibit about Palestine, and that was wonderful. And so, yeah, Melat's out there doing the work, being with community, being with people. Go support her. Go vote for her. The election is June 30th. Get in your ballots. Ballots are out. Fill them out. Support the same candidates that I am supporting, that Melat is supporting. They are true progressives. Go vote for them. Go support them. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with a friend. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the platform where you listen. Get in touch with us at Call Me Limbo Pod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads. CallMeLimboPod@gmail.com. Go subscribe to our Substack, callmelimbopod.substack.com. Go become a Patreon member, patreon.com/callmelimbopod, or send one-time contributions on Venmo and Cash App. And I have a little something. I don't think it's as good as give me my unlimited hot chocolate or give me death. But it's like I always say, I'm all over the place, and I love that for democracy.
Hey, we'll take it.
I love
Well,
it.
thank y'all
I
so
love
much
it.
for listening. Thank you so much, Melat. And everyone remember, when they go low,
We elect Melat Kiros to Congress.
yes,
So
so
call
call
me
me
Limbo.
Limbo. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.